Yesterday, we looked at the top individual rosters in the minor league. Today, the best position groups per organization for every spot on the diamond. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On MLB Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on in to Locked On MLB Prospects, your home for all things minor league baseball. I'm your host, Lindsey Crosby, editor-in-chief of BraveToday.com, freelance baseball writer and podcaster. Thank you for making this your first listen every single day. We're probably part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And today's episode came from a listener. We did the best individual minor league rosters yesterday. Go back and watch the show if you haven't seen it. We covered AAA, AA, High A, and Single A, which teams were the most talented. And a listener said, what about position groups? Like, who has the best collection of outfielders or the best collection of shortstops? And so that's what we're going to do today. And we're going to start with the outfielders to kind of give you an idea of my criteria here, okay? I looked for one, was there a top-end prospect there? So if you look at the top 10 outfielders in baseball, were they represented in that top 10 outfield prospects in baseball? And then what did the depth look like? Did they have multiple guys in that top 10? Did they have a lot of ranked prospects in there and or guys that looked pretty likely to make the bigs? So starting with the outfield here, your winner on this is the Washington Nationals. I considered a bunch of other teams. The Orioles were very close to making this because the Orioles have two outfielders in the top 10, in their top 10, and three in their top 15. They've got Colton Cowser, they've got Kyle Stowers in their top 10, and then in the top 15, you have Dylan Beavers, you have Judd Fabian, and you have Heston Kierstad. So fantastic quality up at the top. But Washington, to me, had to be the winner because they've got so many very good outfielders in the system. The only issue you have here is the distribution isn't great. So when you look at this, you only have one outfield prospect, one of your top guys in the upper minors. And that's Robert Hassel. You're probably the number 2 prospect in the system. He's in AA. Outside of that, you've got 3 of your top 10 in High A, James Wood, Jeremy De La Rosa, and TJ White. You have another 3 or 4 in Single A with Elijah Green, last year's draft pick, Dalen Lyle, Rismer Quintana, Brennan Cox. And then you have the number 1 international signee, Christian Vaquero, in rookie ball. So, it comes out to, if my math is right, 6 top 10 prospects and 8 top 20 prospects, all at the same position. Again, the downside for fans in Washington is it's going to take a while for most of these guys to get to the bigs, most of them being in the lower minors. You're looking at, I think, at best 2 seasons, unless somebody has a Jackson Chourio-like explosion to get up there. Speaking of Jackson Chourio, the Brewers were a strong candidate for this. Until the promotions that happened earlier this year, you have Jackson Chourio, you have Sal Frelick, but Joey Wiemer and Garrett Mitchell have already been promoted to the bigs, and they are close to losing rookie eligibility. Or losing prospect eligibility, and so it ended up being, I didn't necessarily love the depth as well as some of your guys are about to come out of this. So Washington is the winner, but up there, you had the Orioles, you had the Brewers, you would have had the Diamondbacks if this was last year because Alec Thomas, Jake McCarthy, Corbin Carroll, all 3 of them have either graduated or about to graduate, and so now you are, it's Drew Jones is kind of carrying that system right now in the outfield. When it comes to catchers, I'll give you the honorable mention first, and then we'll talk about the 2 favorites to who it might be. The honorable mention was the Angels, okay? Edgar Quero is in Double-A, has looked very impressive offensively. He's much improved defensively. And then Logan O'Hoppe has had an amazing start to his year in the majors. One of the guys I went out and prioritized. Well, I joined a new dynasty league. New to me, they've been around for a long time. But when I took over a bad team, trying to figure out how to rebuild it, the two guys that I prioritized going out and getting early because I felt like they were undervalued in the league was Logan O'Hoppe and Garrett Mitchell. And both of those so far have worked out for me. I know dynasty baseball, they say don't focus on catchers and don't focus on pitching, but both of those guys happened to work out for me pretty well. So I went out and got both of them. So honorable mention, Los Angeles Angels. The two that I'm down to is the Pirates and the Mets. And I think I'm going to give it to the Mets. But for the Pirates, you're looking at Endy Rodriguez, who is in AAA. You're looking at Henry Davis, who is in Double-A. So Pirates have two top three prospects at catcher. The reason that that I put them second is you're in a situation where there's conversation about where is Endy Rodriguez going to play. He's talented enough where you may play him somewhere else. As well as there are questions about the development of Henry Davis. The defense is behind where it needs to be. And he struggled with injuries and things like that. So I feel like developmentally he's a little bit behind. Whereas the Mets, you have Kevin Parada, who's in High A. So we talked about on yesterday's show that High A Brooklyn roster is the best roster in High A. And then Francisco Alvarez, who has been called up and is at the big league level right now. So ultimately, it was something where I think Alvarez has the highest ceiling of any of these catchers from the two organizations. Parada is the number 4 prospect in the organization, needs some defensive work, but very promising offensively. And part of the reason that he's there is because you have Brett Beatty, who I think is fantastic, above him, as well as Cody Senga. So Mets have the best catching talent in the minors, technically, until Francisco Alvarez graduates, with the Pirates right behind them, and then the Angels right behind them, although Logan O'Hoppe is also going to graduate soon. So by midseason, the Pirates will be number 1 in this. The third position group for the first segment here is the Oakland A's at first base. Something where little bit of caveats here because a lot of these guys have slashes where they play other places. Tyler Soderstrom was drafted as a catcher, but a lot of places, we talked about this last year, he had more starts at first base than at catcher. So rather than being a catcher / first baseman, he is now a first baseman / catcher. He's in AAA. I like the possibility of calling him up late in the season as a first base thing. I was a little bit surprised when Seth Brown went down that they didn't go out and do it, but I understand their desire to wait, so not a big deal. Jordan Diaz is a top 10, 12 prospect for them, plays both first base and second base and third base, so he can kind of play a lot of the infield. He's in AAA right now, and as I understand, they're kind of sharing some time at first base, so you've got that. And then you have Lawrence Butler, who is listed as an outfielder and a first baseman because he's been adding outfield flexibility. So something where Jordan Diaz, defensively limited, going to end up at first base. They played him some at second, played him some at third, but the range isn't great. Lawrence Butler has been playing a lot of outfield recently, especially in the fall league last year, but started off at first base. And I think ultimately is going to be either a corner outfielder or a first baseman, probably a flex guy who can do both. So I've got the Oakland A's as having the best depth at first base. There are teams that have individual really good players. I think about the Rays here. You've got Kyle Manzardo. I think it's going to be a fantastic first baseman. Curtis Mead can play first, but he's listed as like second base, third base. Xavier Isaac there for the Rays, a promising young slugger at first base. But we just need to see a little bit more from Xavier Isaac because it's his first time in pro ball to really know how good he's going to be so that he can crack this list. In just a minute, I want to get to the rest of the infield, second base, shortstop, and third base, because there's a lot of fun conversations to have here. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends with eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. The next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay's guaranteed fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check mark to know your part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it is easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. So get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. Okay, so second base, shortstop, third base. Second base, little bit of a conversation, and this is where it's tough when you're trying to determine the best talent in an organization when it comes to second, short, and third, because you have to figure out who legitimately is a second baseman versus who is going to be moved to second base eventually. So like the Reds have a ton of shortstops. You'll hear about them when we get to the best shortstops. Spoiler alert. But so many of them are listed as shortstop, third baseman, or shortstop. And we know that some of these guys, like a Matt McClain, is not going to stick at short. They're going to either get kicked inside to second base or sent to the outfield. So I was kind of looking at guys that were just listed as second baseman. That was their main position. Narrowed it down to the Tigers and the Pirates. So the Tigers have Jace Young, drafted last year. He's in high A. And they have Wenzel Perez, who is in single A. I ultimately have them coming in number 2 because number 1, I have the Pittsburgh Pirates. They've got 2 prospects listed in the top, probably in the top 10 second basemen in baseball, according to MLB Pipeline, that are primarily second basemen. I've got Nick Gonzalez in AAA, second base / shortstop, but from what I understand, from what I've seen of him, I fully expect him to, he is an offense first player. He's going to stick it short. He's played third a little bit. He can fill in at shortstop, but he very much is going to stick at second base. That is going to be his position. So I've got him. And then the other guy, obviously the big one, Tamar Johnson, number 4 overall pick last year. And it's something where he's seen as having like 70 grade hit tool. Amazing hitter, still having plus power, just very, very good hand-eye coordination, very, very good swing decisions. And so we've got Tamar Johnson as the number 1 second baseman or second base prospect in baseball right now. And because of that, Pirates having 2 in the top 10, it feels like they are tops on the list for best second base in the organization. Although, like I said, so many guys are going to get moved from short to somewhere else, so that does skew things a bit. Third base was difficult for that same reason, right? You have a lot of guys who play shortstop that are candidates to get moved to third base. You have a shortstop with a bigger arm, but lesser range. It's very easy to kick them outside to third base. The range doesn't hurt you as much. They can let that big arm eat. Ellie De La Cruz for the Reds is a guy who I feel like could be an elite third baseman. He's still playing short. Well, he's hurt right now, but he's been playing shortstop still, and he is still listed as a shortstop, even though I ultimately think because there are better defenders than him, somebody else will end up as the shortstop in Cincinnati. The Rays do have, and the Reds also have guys listed at third base that are good candidates here. The Rays have Curtis Mead, who's listed as a third baseman and second baseman. And then they have Junior Caminero, who is listed solely as a third baseman, although he's played some second base as well. Caminero's in high A, Mead is in triple A. I feel like Mead is probably the higher ceiling of the guys that are, again, listed as third basemen. And so I've got the Rays as having the best organizational depth at third base in the minors. The Reds have multiple guys that I considered for this. Cam Collier, listed as a third baseman. Christian Encarnacion Strand is listed as a third baseman, but I feel like he's going to end up being a first baseman. Honestly, I think CES may end up being the heir apparent to Joey Votto at first base for the Reds. And then you've got Sal Stewart, who is listed as a third baseman. We talked about this the other day. Collier and Stewart both playing third means you're going to see some rotation. Stewart's going to play some first base and things like that. And third base to first base, that's something a lot of guys end up doing, is playing both. Matter of fact, I think at the big league level, I think Matt Olson's backup in Atlanta is third baseman Austin Riley. It's just a lot of guys end up playing both. So the Reds have more top prospects at third base between Sal Stewart, Christian Encarnacion Strand, and Cam Collier, but I like the Rays with their two top 10 guys, Junior Caminero and Curtis Mead, to say that the Rays have the best third base depth in the minors. Shortstop, this is tough for a different reason, obviously. The issue when you're looking at shortstop is so many players start off at shortstop. Every organization should have a ton of shortstop prospects because just about every right-handed starter on the field for you probably started off at some point in time in their life as a shortstop and got moved, whether it was in high school, whether it was in college, whether it was in the pros. And so the Reds, for me, they just have so many quality options that could still play shortstop at the major league level. Elly De La Cruz, we mentioned him already. Noelvi Marte, I think, is going to end up as a third baseman, but he is still listed as a shortstop. You've got Edwin Arroyo. I mean, their top three prospects to a lot of places are all shortstops. Matt McLain, again, I mentioned this earlier, listed as a shortstop and a second baseman. He's also played outfield going back to his time at UCLA. I don't think he'll end up at short because there are better defenders. I think he'll be second base or outfield, but he is listed there as well. Ricardo Cabrera is playing shortstop in rookie ball. You've got Victor Acosta playing shortstop in A ball. You've got Jose Torres playing short and second in Double A. And so you have you just have a ton of guys, and most of them, McLean's probably the exception, most of them could stick at shortstop, albeit Noelvi Marte probably would give you average at best defense. But so many of these guys can stick at shortstop in the system and have ceilings. Like Elly De La Cruz's ceiling is one of the highest in all of baseball. Now, his floor is very low because he strikes out 30% of the time, but his ceiling is incredibly high. And so it's hard for me to look at the collection of shortstops and say, yeah, no, it's somebody besides the Cincinnati Reds. They've just got so many options, and we've talked about this before on the show. My everydayers will know this, but they've done so much work to bring in so much talent via trade that it's absolutely, it's very, very impressive, and it's given them one of the better farm systems in baseball. In just a minute, let's talk about pitching, because this one is obviously very subjective. This one is also very hard to properly figure out, but we're going to try our best to do this. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends with Rocket Money. Try it free for 30 days. That's how they get you. It's just enough time for you to try a new service, a new product, or whatever, and then completely forget about it. Over 80% of people have subscriptions that they have forgotten about. You could be wasting money and not even realizing it. So, Rocket Money helps you find those forgotten subscriptions so you can stop paying for ones you don't use. It's a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills. I went in, I downloaded Rocket Money, connected it, gave it all the access it needed to have. Everything's safe and secure, super easy to use too. But Rocket Money went and found, hey, you're still paying for Peacock. Do you watch Peacock? Turns out I had gotten Peacock last year, done the free trial to watch some MLB games when Peacock was doing, I think it was the Sunday morning MLB games last year. So I was watching those on Peacock and I forgot about it. And all off season, I was paying monthly for Peacock. So Rocket Money made it quick and easy to find it. I hit cancel. They canceled it for me. It was that easy. So stop throwing your money away, cancel unwanted subscriptions, and manage your expenses the easy way by going to rocketmoney.com/lockedonmlb. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedonmlb to sign up for the free Rocket Money app, rocketmoney.com/lockedonmlb. Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends at Built Bar. If you're looking for a delicious snack but don't want all the sugar or calories, you need to have the best tasting protein bar ever, Built. You've got to try it. If you're like me and you want to make a healthier snack choice, but you don't want to compromise on taste, Built Bars and Built Puffs are the thing for you. They are healthy and they taste amazing. Why do they taste so good? One, they're all covered in 100% real chocolate. Most of it's dark chocolate, which to me is even better than regular chocolate. The flavors are fantastic. Churro, it's my favorite. Peanut butter brownie, cookies and cream, double chocolate, coconut puff, all of that. I don't really know how they do this, but they taste like a candy bar, but they've got amazing macros. 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, but like 17 grams of protein. So it makes you feel full and it keeps you full. And now, finally, you don't have to wait to get a box. We've talked about going to Built.com and ordering your Built Bars, but now you can get the base collection at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. So go to Walmart, the pharmacy section, grab a box of Built Bars. They've got a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, a 4 double chocolate bar or coconut puff, or you can go to Sam's Club and grab a 13-bar box of brownie batter puff and churro puff. Everything else, all of the specialty flavors at Built.com. Okay, so when we're looking at the top position groups in the minors per organization, left-handed pitchers, I've got a couple I have to figure out here, okay? So here are the options. Cardinals, Marlins, Giants. Cardinals, part of the reason the Cardinals are in my top list, not everybody would. I have more faith in Matthew Liberatore than a lot of other people do. We talked about this on yesterday's show. I'm a big Matthew Liberatore guy, but between him, who's in AAA, and Cooper Yerpe, the draft pick from last year out of Oregon State, who's in High A, they've got a couple, not premier, but they have a couple top-end left-handed pitching prospects. But again, I think part of that's skewed because I'm really high on Matthew Liberatore and see a lot of Max Fried in his game. The Marlins have a couple prominent left-hand pitching prospects. They've got Jake Eder, who's in Double-A. They have Dax Fulton, who's also in Double-A. Makes it really fun to watch them when they come through town because they've got more lefties than your average minor league rotation does. But I think the winner here, if you're being impartial, has to be the San Francisco Giants. Kyle Harrison is the number 1 left-handed pitching prospect in baseball. We talked about him on, I think, Tuesday's show, talking about top AAA pitchers you might see in 2023, which, by the way, kind of nailed the Taj Bradley call-up. We said you'd see him this year. We just thought it'd be later in the year. He got called up to start on Thursday. Wednesday? He started on Wednesday. So he's starting after we record this. We'll have more about that start on Friday's show. But Kyle Harrison, the best left-handed pitching prospect in baseball. You also have guys that were drafted last year. Reggie Crawford, two-way player, plays both first base and a left-handed pitcher. From what I've been told, they like him better as a left-handed pitcher. He's barely pitched, but again, they like him better as that pitcher versus playing first base. He'll be in, I believe he is getting assigned to A-ball. So, I'm sorry, he's in rookie ball. Very excited to see what he does in rookie ball. And then Carson Wisenhunt is in A-ball. He was the somewhat controversial draftee technically out of Eastern Carolina. He was tested positive for a performance-enhancing substance before the 2022 college season and was removed from the team. Ended up doing a little bit of stuff in independent ball, things like that, Cape Cod League. Collegiate national team is in his past, and so still got taken in the second round by the Giants. Went to the AFL, and then is now assigned to Low A. Very excited to watch what Carson Wisenhunt does. I thought there was a lot of potential there going into the season last year, going into the college season, and was expecting him to be one of the top pitchers on the board, if not for the suspension and not having a spring of competition like everybody else did. So Giants number 1, Marlins number 2, with the Cardinals number 3. And I'll acknowledge, I think the Cardinals are 3 because I'm higher on Matthew Liberatore than some other people are based on some of his previous major league experience. Right-handed pitching, obviously, this is the most, on average, if you were to guess any given player's, like you were given a name of a player you had never heard of in the minors and were told to guess their position, the safest guess is obviously right-handed pitcher. That is the most common demographic in minor league baseball is right-handed pitcher because that's the preferred handedness. You usually have a ton of pitchers per organization. It makes a lot of sense if you had to guess on any random guy. Let's let that be a little tip for you. If you had to guess on a random guy, assume right-handed pitcher. But I've narrowed it down to 3 based off of top prospects, like how many righties do you have in the top 10 and the ceilings of those righties. So the Guardians, I have them at 3rd for right-handed pitching. They have their 4th best guy is just outside the top 10 in Justin Campbell. He's in rookie ball. But if you look at their top 3, it's a very good top 3. You've got Daniel Espino, you've got Gavin Williams, who I believe are both at AA, and you've got Tanner Bibby, who's in AAA with the Columbus Clippers. So 3 very good right-handed pitchers. Williams and Espino are considered like the 1 and 2 in the system. Bibby is just outside the top 5, but still in the top 10, so very good there. The Philadelphia Phillies probably would have been number 1 were Andrew Painter healthy. We've talked about Andrew Painter is the best right-handed pitching prospect in baseball. He took that mantle away from Grayson Rodriguez. Nothing Grayson Rodriguez did. Andrew Painter was just that amazing last year, but was also shut down in the spring with, I believe, a partial tear of the UCL. He just started the throwing program the other day. We're hopeful to hear if he's able to come back this season or if he ends up needing the Tommy John procedure, which would put him on track to get back on a mound late in 2024 and probably not pitching competitively until 2025. But you've got Alex McFarland, who's in A-ball. He's on the back half of the top 10. I want to say probably around number 10 or so to a lot of prospect evaluators. Just outside the top 10, by the way, you've got another 5 right-handed pitchers. Hans Krause, Andrew Baker, Francisco Morales, Christian McGowan, Micah Odenbritt. Again, right-handed pitcher is the most common demographic in baseball. But Alex McFarland's the backside of the top 10, and then your top 3 prospects are all righties. You've got Andrew Painter, like we talked about. You've also got Mick Abel and Griff McGarry. I believe both in AA right now, but guys that if they perform well, you could see up this year. McGarry had 7 appearances last year at Lehigh Valley, dealt with a blister issue, spent time in the bullpen late in the year because of that blister and workload concerns. And then Mick Abel was something where he capped out in AA Reading. And so not sure who you would see first, but I absolutely think that debuts on these guys could be, if Philly needed them, could be late this year. It feels like the right plan would be maybe get them a start or 2 towards the end of the year and then have them contending for jobs out of spring training in 2024. Very similar to what Atlanta did with Spencer Strider. They brought him up at the very end of the year in 2021. He got like 1 start in the bigs, opened 2022 in the bullpen, quickly moved to starter, ended up being runner-up for Rookie of the Year. That feels like the Griff McGarry, Mick Abel plan, is wait till the very end of the year, get them up briefly, and then do that. But the number 1 organization when it comes to right-handed pitching has to be the Los Angeles Dodgers. Looking at all of the right-handed pitching that they have 3 top 5 prospects that are righties. Ryan Pepio at the MLB level, he's on the injured list right now. You've got Bobby Miller and Gavin Stone, who we talked about on Tuesday's episode. They're both in AAA. They're both looking very, very good. And then behind that, you've got top 10 prospect Nick Nastrini in AA. You've got top 10 prospect Nick Frasso In Double-A, you've got Emmett Sheehan and Landon Knack, who are both top 15 prospects. In Double-A, you just have a ton of arms. And then like behind that, just continuing to go, you have River Ryan, you have Michael Grove, just even some of the lower rated guys, a Landon Knack, a Kyle Hurd, a Carlos Duran. Like, I like all of those guys. There's just tons of right-handed pitching talent in this system and guys that feel like you're going to get 3/5 of a major league rotation out of in the next 2 or 3 years. So this is a great idea for a show. I'm super glad that listener reached out to me about it. If you have show ideas or questions for the mailbag on Monday, I'm on Twitter at Crosby Baseball. Show's on Twitter at Locked On Farm. You can email us, lockedonmlbprospects@gmail.com, or drop your questions into Locked On MLB Prospects Discord. Links in the episode description, links in the show notes. Till tomorrow's show, remember, it's always a great time to pay a minor leaguer.